Today I want to talk about the latest with JT Tuimoloau and Emeka Egbuka's recruitment and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about 5 stars JT Tuimoloau and Emeka Egbuka. Before I get to that, I want to apologize for today. No live stream podcast, but there will be a podcast on the RJ Young Show podcast. I just had something come up that's related to this book project that I'm working on, and it is unavoidable. I am terribly sorry about that. I'll see you on Wednesday. But in that stead, we're going to do some uploads. So the first one is about JT Tuimoloau and Emeka Egbuka. And Brandon Huffman has been doing yeoman's work in keeping up with the recruitment of those two players. Both of them have Ohio State and Washington on their list. And then that's where it gets a little bit iffy and or up in the air. Now, for a guy like JT Tuimoloau, it's very interesting because he's planning to play basketball along with football wherever it is he goes. And I know that Washington would more than likely love to have him play basketball and football, anything to keep him in the state. With Ohio State, it feels like the same thing could happen there, though Ohio State is a bit better of a basketball program at present than the University of Washington, even as the University of Washington continues to put out first-round draft picks seemingly every 2-3 years. I know that there's some Washington fan that watches this channel that's going to get upset about that. By all means, have at me in the comments. But the way that this is really shaping up for Ohio State is interesting because with these two recruits, you have an opportunity to move the needle in a meaningful way. As a matter of fact, just taking a look at the 247 Sports Calculator, if Ohio State were to land Emeka Egbuka and JT Tuimoloau, you're looking at a score of 317.63. That's 22 commits in the boat, right? When we have a basic limit of 25. So you have some moving and shaking you can still do there. I don't think that they're in the Tristan Lay sweepstakes any more than I think that Oklahoma is in the Egbuka sweepstakes, though Egbuka told Huffman he is down to 3 schools, Ohio State, Washington, and Oklahoma, that he hasn't really spoken with Clemson in some time, so that feels like it's dead, and he really still wants to get to Oklahoma for a visit. Now, we all know that the dead period has been extended for a full year, right, to April. That's what it will have been by the time we think it might be lifted. But as coronavirus cases continue to spike and we're seeing more lockdowns go in place across the country, it's becoming more difficult to move around. It feels like if Emeka Egbuka and his father are going to get to Oklahoma, they're going to have to do it in the month of November. You would love for it to be a Bedlam weekend like this one, but be that as it is, he also wants to make sure that Caleb Williams is there for whatever that is. Caleb Williams has moved to Norman, so that's going to be a little bit easier to do if that's what he wants to do. And I think for Oklahoma, you were thinking that perhaps you could get a kid like Egbuka on campus. And what a real win that would have been for them to be able to take him on an official visit and to show him what's really good about Oklahoma, aside from Dennis Simmons being able to talk with him 2 or 3 times a week during this dead period when Egbuka wants to talk. All of that goes into Ohio State's good grace, right? We understand that Ohio State is in a very good position when it comes to recruiting Egbuka. 1, he's been there. 2, you know what the pedigree is going to be. You know what they do from a program standpoint, competing for national championships along with competing for the Big Ten Conference Championship. The thing that Oklahoma has that separates them from Ohio State is Oklahoma has put back-to-back first-round draft picks in the NFL draft consecutive years and has seen more than its fair share of wide receivers not only get drafted in the first round, but have good and long careers in the first round. It's also kind of going against Ohio State that they haven't had a first-round draft pick since 2007. Now, does that mean that you're not going to be successful at the NFL level? No, not at all. Take a look at Curtis Samuel. Take a look at Ted Ginn. Take a look at, yes, of course, Michael Thomas, right? So you'll make money toward the back end, but if you can make as much money as you possibly can toward the front end with no guarantee that you're going to play past the first 3 years like most NFL players, perhaps you take that stuff into account. And it's also about what the offense is going to look like and how they're going to move you around and what you plan to be like. Like, I still think that KJ Hill being drafted in the 7th round hurt Ohio State in its wide receiver recruiting, even as we don't see it, right? I think that the kids coming up, we're thinking that KJ Hill was going to be a first-round draft pick when they are signed early. Julian Fleming among them, along with Jackson Smith and Jigba and G. Scott, and on it goes. I also believe that Oklahoma gets to say, look at our receipts. Think of how we're going to continue to push for offensive talent. We got dudes that are showing out as true freshmen, like Marvin Mims, who has an opportunity to be not just newcomer of the year, but is in the conversation for the best player in the conference this year, though I think that that's probably Breece Hall with everything he's been able to do at the running back position for Iowa State, who is at the top of the standings right now. And usually that award, Offensive Player of the Year, goes to the best player on the best team, let alone the best offense. Also take into account that when you get to Oklahoma and knowing that you're going to have an opportunity to play right away if you're good, I don't know that you can say that at places like Ohio State, where you're seeing Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson really lord over that receiving core for good reason, right? I think that they are outstanding wide receivers. I also think that it's really difficult for you to push that your true freshmen are going to play a lot of football if they're not playing a lot of football already. For Oklahoma to be able to point to a Marvin Mims is a tremendous feather in their cap. As for Tuimoloau, it feels like Washington is still in it. It feels like Ohio State is leading, but it's felt that way for months. And as we get closer to the early signing period that I cannot believe has not been pushed back because kids don't have an opportunity to visit these places where they're going to have to make these 40-year decisions is stupid to me. Like, I would give this more air if college football coaches weren't already giving it more air, and most of those guys have a much larger group of people that they're talking to than I do. But suffice to say, I'm not on board with having an early signing period without being able to take official visits. If it's not safe to take official visits, push the early signing period to next year. Matter of fact, signing day could be pushed for all I give a damn, because like we have basketball signing period in May, right? We could do this again in May. If it's safe in May, and you could have your onslaught of kids that want to actually take their visits. And I'm sure that there are college football coaches that would help you find a way to get that done. Being that as it is, though, we're going to have kids that are signing national letter of intents, some of them whom have never visited their campuses in an official capacity. And I think we're going to set a standard for a precursor of ridiculous amount of kids going into the transfer portal. And not everybody gets to come out of that portal at a place where you can find a scholarship or a place where you want to play football. I think the next few years are going to be horrible when it comes to evaluation, understanding who's good and why, except the film that we have at the places that we're allowed to play high school football this year. Among them, Texas and Oklahoma. California is going to try to play in the spring, but even that feels like it's hard. We're looking at lockdowns until a vaccine, because a vaccine would make some of us comfortable. And while there are folks who don't care either way, we're not talking to you. I no longer care whether or not you think that it's being alarmist to talk about this virus. We're not talking about you, right? And in states like Oklahoma, where we're not going to have a statewide mask mandate, you're getting what you want. In other states like New York, probably not. But until we figure this thing out where everybody feels safe, I feel like taking advantage of the rules is what is going to take place in more places than not. I hate that. I like fair play, but I'm also a realist in that if Ohio State feels like they can swing JT Tuimoloau and Emeka Egbuka without them taking visits elsewhere, they're not going to cry about it, right? They're going to take the kids. Whereas if Oklahoma were able to pull off a remarkable upset for me and get an Egbuka to Oklahoma, you're going to talk about them as being one of the elite recruiters in college football, given the circumstances. All things to take into account. All right, that is it for me. Deuces.